last nail went into the coffin of Michigan's push to raise the minimum wage to $10 an hour. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Sarah Swistak. In a 3-1 decision, the State Board of Canvassers voted to not certify a petition from the group Raise Michigan. That means you won't be voting on it come November. Anthony Sabella tells us why it failed.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay.
It took hours of deliberation and a re-examining of questionable signatures, but in the end, the State Board of Canvassers couldn't ignore the numbers given to them by Elections Director Chris Thomas.
So how short did we end up then?
3,900.
Raise Michigan needed slightly more than 258,000 signatures for their petition to be valid. Coming into Thursday's meeting, it cleared that mark by about 1,700, according to an initial count. But opposing group People Protecting Michigan Jobs challenged that dozens of signatures in the sample alone had duplicates, and there were likely thousands more in the rest of the petition. A 2-hour recess allowed staff to check, and their findings supported that challenge.
We're pleased, though, that both the staff and the board did examine these signatures. They should not have been counted under any circumstances, and we're obviously pleased that they've arrived at that decision.
Raise Michigan, on the other hand, isn't buying it.
Based on their sample, we had turned in enough. And sure, if you pick specific petitions out of a sample and change the entire sampling process and the timelines involved, you can make anything look like anything.
Add in the fact the challenge was turned in 12 days after the July 11th deadline, and Raise Michigan has some serious questions about the entire process.
We followed the rules, and they were set aside today. And that's, I think, as big of a concern as even raising the minimum wage.
The board has a duty. If there's a non-registered voter or an improper voter, we ought to have the opportunity to have that considered.
And that was Anthony Sabella reporting. The decision to allow the challenge despite missing the deadline isn't unprecedented. It happened in 2006 with a different case. For Raise Michigan, an appeal of today's decision will have to come soon if it stands a chance of getting on the ballot. That appeal would be made through the Court of Claims. The board also unanimously voted on a petition allowing the Natural Resource Commission to determine what are considered game animals and to establish hunts. Anthony caught up with those in support of the measure, and they told him what happens next.
With a citizen-initiated law, basically it goes through this process. It does go to the legislature. They have 40 days to basically enact it. If they choose not to, then it does go to the ballot.
This law is similar to one already approved last year, so they're confident it'll get approval in the legislature again.